Alright guys, welcome back to the shop, and in today's video we're going to be testing an old school mechanic trick, or a hack you might call it, to see if it actually works. So you might have heard an old greasy mechanic that usually lives in the back of the shop, missing teeth, addicted to cigarettes and alcohol, say that transmission fluid can actually clean intake valves, the top of the piston, clean out the whole entire engine, and even clean up fuel injectors just by pouring this directly into the engine and letting it kind of hot soak, and it will clear everything out. Now, I want to put that to the test today. This is the transmission fluid I'm going to be using today. It's Dextron and Mercon. It's an ATF mix, and we're going to be running 3 different experiments today, one of which is going to be through the intake. Then we're going to put some into the fuel system, and then finally into the engine oil. We'll see what happens in each test, and by the end of the video, we can compare our before and after for each single test that we run. So it's going to get smoky, and it's going to get messy, but let's see what's real and what's just plain shop BS. So this 1999 Toyota Camry is going to be the test subject today. I'm going to get the hood off, and I'm going to get a few parts off so we can actually get a camera in there and see the before condition before we do all these tests, so we kind of have a good base to go off of, and then we will recheck afterwards. So I'm going to pull the valve cover so we can kind of see what the top engine looks like before we put the stuff in the engine oil to see if it actually cleans it. And I'm also going to stick a camera in each spark plug tube to see the carbon buildup on the piston and the valves, and that'll kind of give us a good base starting point of what this engine looks like now versus all the tests we're about to run. So let me get this hood off. There, now we got the hood off, so now we can actually see what we're about to do right now. We got some good lighting, and this engine has 285,000 miles on it, so it better have some carbon in it, because it actually looks like a pretty decent engine so far. Testament to Toyota Camrys. Pretty dang good vehicle. So let's pull this valve cover off, get the spark plugs out, we'll get the camera in there, and we will see what our starting point looks like, and then we will start with our experiment number 1. Not for impact use. Now with the valve cover off, we can see that this thing does have carbon buildup on it, which is a good thing because 285,000 miles, but it's not as terrible as some may think with this kind of mileage on it. Here's what I'm looking for. Will the transmission fluid clean up some of these deposits all on the cams here, on the back of it, by the lifters back there? If I scrape away at the top of the cylinder head here, you know, I can get some carbon buildup that's on the back of my screwdriver there. So will it clean some of this stuff off of the top here and off of the cams by cycling it through? I don't know, maybe we do half hour, give or take, and then we'll pull the valve cover off for that test. Now I also want to get a good visual of each and every spark plug hole so we can get a good picture of the intake valves and see what they look like. Hopefully they got some carbon buildup on them. You can see that the top of the piston definitely has some carbon buildup on it. Let's see if we can get a good angle at the valve here. Oh, there you go, that's a perfect picture. Look at those intake valves. So that definitely has carbon built up on it. So if we run this through the intake, will that clear the carbon off these valves and clean up the top of this ridge right here? You can see where the top of the piston doesn't meet on this edge here. So we're real close. All that is carbon buildup as well. So if we run it through the intake, will it clean that as well? And I'm also going to run some through the fuel, so hopefully that cleans the injector, and this might actually clean some of that up too as well. So those are 2 tests that we're going to try that should remedy some of this. Let me just get a picture of each thing, and I'm going to get a picture on every single cylinder so we can do before and after. All right, and then one other visual I want to get is the intake, because we're going to be running a lot of this transmission fluid through the actual intake manifold. I want to see if it'll clean that as well. And you can see by the throttle plate, that ain't looking very good. So let's just open up the throttle plate and get a couple of visuals on the inside. And that's the inside of the intake. Look at all the carbon built up in there. That is horrendous. So we're going to take a few photos of that as well. That looks like volcanic ash. That is awful. A couple of photos of that as well. So now let's wrap this thing back up, get everything reassembled, and then we'll start on test 1, which is going to be running the ATF through the intake manifold to see if it clears out any of the carbon deposit. And then we'll try the fuel, and then we will put it in the engine oil. And before I put these spark plugs back in, might as well just get a good visual of what these look like before, because we might follow one of these out. A little bit of carbon buildup. This one's got some deposits on it. You can see right here. Probably tough to see with the camera. But regardless, let's get back to reassembling this thing. Okay, now everything is back, buttoned up. We're going to do the very first experiment, test number 1, and we're going to run ATF through the intake manifold, we're just going to find a vacuum line, probably just right here on top of the EGR. And we will suck this into the intake. I'm going to let the engine get nice and hot first. So hopefully this is a true and tried fix, but we will see with test number 1. And this is the vacuum hose I'm going to use, which I just broke, which is kind of a bummer. And I'm actually going to back this thing out because I know it's going to smoke. So first up, I wanted to make sure that the engine was nice and warm and at operating temperature. So I gave it a few revs here until it was nice and warm before I put any of that ATF into the intake manifold. You can see it's nice and warm. Now the EGR valve line didn't give me enough vacuum, but this brake booster line did. And this is the fluid that I'm going to be dumping right into this line. Now you have to do this super slowly because if you dump it in, you could hydrolock the engine and that would be really bad. Now I'm just going to repeat this cycle a few more times to get it nice and coated in that intake manifold with some ATF. And then she should begin to start a little bit of a smoke show. And as you can see out the tailpipe, now we're starting to smoke pretty dang good here. So we're getting nice and coated in that intake manifold. And I wanted to make sure I had the intake nice and coated, so I found a front vacuum line too to use as well. And now I'm going to let it sit for a little bit. I'll run it one more time after it hot soaks, and then we will put it back in the shop and we will see if it cleaned any carbon out of the intake. All right, so we're back in the shop now. The car's in the shop. And that was like 45 minutes-ish run time, about a quart of ATF. And I did it through both little hoses of the intake here, through this hose here and this one back here. I wasn't getting much vacuum out of this, so I don't know if it's just plugged up or what. So now let's take the snorkel off. We'll stick the camera back in it, and we will see, did it clean up anything? And I will compare the before and after. All right, so first things first, this thing was pretty gummed up, so I'm not sure we're gonna see much from the inside here. It's kind of hard to tell. Let me stick the camera in it once. All right, so first things first, there is some cleaning on the deposits here. So this might actually be working. It might actually be looking pretty dang good in here. Hopefully the camera's picking that up. So let's take a picture here. Get a shot there. Stick this camera back in a little further. Yeah, look at this. The actual big deposits of carbon actually came right off the side of this intake. So the ATF, I'm going to say this is actually working. You can see there's a ton of it in there. I bet you if we continue to get this thing hot and did it a few times, we could get some of this carbon to break free from this. So test number 1, I'm going to say, yeah, ATF in the intake will clean the intake. It's probably even cleaned the valves too if I got the camera down on the spark plugs. Why don't I do that quick? I'll just get a plug out and just look. I got 1 and 2 spark plugs out of the hole now. Number 1's pretty close to top dead center, so it's kind of hard to get the camera in there, but you can see the top of the piston. You can see it started to clean it just out of the intake valve. You can see the edge right there. All the little specks, those are pieces of carbon that came off the piston. Yeah, you can't really turn it around in there, but let's put it in cylinder number 2. You can see right here it started to clean up on this edge of the piston. And then right here, it actually started to get pretty shiny too. Well, let's look at the valves. You can see the cylinder head right here. It actually started to clean it up a little bit. And yeah, the valves are still pretty carboned up looking, but it looks like some chunks maybe have come off of it. All right, and now all this is a clear indicator that this will actually remove carbon from your intake manifold, the tops of the piston, and the valves. I am going to put it in the fuel system too. I'm going to put a little bit in the fuel. That's probably going to take a little longer. I don't know if we're going to notice anything different on that, but if you do run it through the intake, this is a clear indication that it is working. And I do want to run it in the engine oil, so maybe in conjunction we'll put it in the engine oil. I'll put it in the fuel system as well. We're going to kind of conjoin those two tests, and we will see what actually happens, because I'm going to run it too for, I don't know, maybe 35 minutes, 40 minutes. There's not really a telltale sign on this, but let's do that. We'll change the oil quick. We'll put ATF in the oil. I think some people said just adding a quart can help. I might try a little different thing and do the whole engine. So hopefully we don't wreck anything before we can see anything. So let me get to it. I'm going to drain the oil quick, and then we will put ATF in it, and then in the fuel system as well. We'll run it for, I don't know, give or take 35 minutes, and we'll tear everything back apart, pull the valve cover off, and see what we can see. Get this oil drained quick, and then we will top it up, and we will see what the result will be. Ugh, nasty. All right, so test number 2 is going to be transmission fluid in the fuel. And we're just gonna do the oil and the fuel together. We're gonna do 1 quart in the fuel tank. And then next up, test number 3, fill the engine up. I'm just gonna do the whole engine with ATF, and I don't know if this is gonna be a really bad idea, a really good idea, or what. Like I said, I think I've heard in the past 1 quart replacement, and then you change it. I think this holds 4. So let's get this filled up with transmission fluid. We'll back it out, and I think I'm gonna run it for, like I said, probably 45-ish minutes. And then we'll come back in, we'll drain the fluid, and we will pull the valve cover, and let's see if the magic happens. And you can see there's transmission fluid. I'm gonna stop there. It's basically full. The only thing I didn't change is the oil filter. And I don't think I really need to be honest. This thing doesn't really hold that much oil. All right, let's get this thing fired up, back it out, and let it run. I got the timer here set to 45 minutes. We're starting now. Let's fire this thing up. Still starts, that's a good sign. Back it out, because it's probably gonna smoke again with the fuel and the yada yada. And then in 45 minutes, we'll come back and we'll pull it in, we'll drain the oil. It's only been like 10 minutes, but look at this, top of the dipstick. Hopefully I can see that. Let me zoom in. There's carbon actually on the tip of the dipstick right now. So clearly it's falling apart in there, which hopefully we don't plug up any oil galleries or anything. And I just figured I'd show this. This is the engine oil I took out. I'm gonna get this drained and cleaned up so we can catch that other oil. But this is pretty murky looking oil too. Hasn't been changed in quite a while, obviously. But I figured I'd show that so we kind of knows what the old oil looks like before we drain this transmission fluid back in here. All right, and our timer is just about up here. And she is done. So let's pull it back in and see what the results will be. All right, so first things first, take a look at that oil. Ugh, it smells pretty dang bad. You can see it turn from red to brown, which obviously it's mixing with the engine oil. Let's pull the plugs out now, and we'll take the valve cover back off. And let's just see if it kind of cleaned up the top end of the engine, and then we'll stick the camera down in and see if we noticed anything different with, you know, a good 45 minutes of runtime on this. All right, now I have the valve cover removed, and you know, it doesn't look that much cleaner. You know, where I scraped right there, you can kind of see maybe it started to dig in because it had a way to get into the crevice. It looks like some of it back here, maybe, let me grab a light. Looks like some of the carbon back there maybe have come off. I'll have to do a before and after comparison. Put some of the beginning video on compared to it. But, you know, clearly it is cleaning it. I can see that it is cleaning it. And this might be not the smartest decision on, especially newer engines, just in the event that carbon breaks apart and gets stuck in oil galleries and stuff like that. You might do some oil starvation, which won't be the greatest thing. I think the biggest thing I noticed so far was with the intake, you know, running through the intake, cleaning the carbon off the valves and stuff. Let's pull the spark plugs out and get the camera back in there and see if we see anything notable now that we had the fuel injectors running the, you know, transmission fluid and burning it as well. Oh, first off, let's get a look at the valves and the pistons. If you could just find a hole there, bud. That piston is actually getting pretty dang clean. You can see the chunk right there of carbon that's coming off this thing. See if I can get a look at the valve. You can see the little ring ridge right here, that carbon that builds up on that thing. That's actually getting clean. So that's working. Let's see if I can get this down in there and see those valves. Yeah, look at that. You can actually start to see some shininess on the valves here. This would be the intake valve right here. And then the chunks right there. But even the top of the cylinder head, look at that. It's starting to clean it up pretty dang good. This is actually a confirmed way to clean carbon. This would actually work. So if you hear the old fogies out there saying this, this trick works. They're definitely right. This trick definitely works. There's a lot of good properties in ATF that does a great job cleaning. I mean, open up a transmission once and you'll see for yourself how clean they can be if it hasn't been beat to the the gardens. Now at the end of the video, I'll just link all the pictures that I took, the before and afters of each cylinder, because I did just get another photo. But let's just take a peek one more time in the intake manifold, see if anything's kind of cleaned up since the last time, because we ran it for another 45 minutes. Right now the intake, it's kind of looking the same that it did. There's still carbon. You can see there's like, the big chunks of carbon and stuff that fell off. But obviously we're only bringing in the fluid at one vacuum source. So maybe the fluid's coming through and like hitting against the intake here and then sucking into the cylinders. Kind of hard to say. Let's try to get it down one of the runners here. Kind of tough to see, but this is down a runner. You can see up on the top here, it's kind of getting some stuff cleaned in. It is doing somewhat of a cleaning, but it's still pretty carboned up. This engine had a ton of carbon in it. And rightfully so with the mileage that's on it, 285,000 miles. Let's get this thing in the air and we'll drain the oil just to see what the condition of that oil looks like now with transmission fluid cycled through it. All right, I got this pan pretty much cleaned up the best I can. This will be interesting. Let's see what it looks like. It's kind of tough to see, but it's got a lot of particles in it. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, like if it's, removing it from stuff that was stuck in the engine, or if I just removed a bunch of bearing material using this fluid. I just idle it too. I didn't really run it so it was like super high in the RPMs. I didn't really want to risk anything exploding on me here quite yet. I just wanted to see what this would do. It's kind of difficult to see from the camera, but look at the cup. I mean, it definitely seems like a lot of debris did come out of the engine. Again, long-term running this thing, I don't know the implications of what the bearings can handle and stuff by having this fluid in there. Look at the cup, it's turning like black. Yucky. Well, there you have it. I'm gonna say experimenting with the ATF here to clean up carbon inside the engine and your valves and your intake and yada yada. I'm gonna say it's a confirmed hack. It does actually work. It does actually get the carbon off the intake and the valves and the top of the piston and all that stuff. Running it through the engine, I don't see as much of a result, I'll call it. Maybe a little bit of cleaning that was done. Maybe if I ran it longer too. I just really don't know how long I should even be doing this test, to be honest. But I did see actually a pretty dang good improvement on the intake. I mean, if you did this a few times for the intake, guaranteed this thing would start to look pretty dang clean on the inside. Plus, there's a lot of carbon buildup. And you always got to be worried about those deposits breaking off and going somewhere that it shouldn't and plugging something up, because that would be no bueno. But hopefully the rest of you gearheads out there found this kind of interesting. I didn't really know where the experiment was going to take me, but here we are. If anybody out there watching this knows something that would be cool to run through this engine, I'm going to be junking the dang thing anyways. So if you got some ideas, I don't know what hasn't been done. I want to do something that's kind of unique. Run it like on olive oil or something stupid, right? If you think of something, shoot me a comment below and maybe I'll try to make a video on it. It'd be kind of fun to do. Until then, like, subscribe, and hopefully you guys are tuning into the next video. Take care.